Hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Good deal. Well, thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate it. I don't know, I recognize a few faces from back when we had last met. It's been, I'm embarrassed to say, almost about a year since I last organized one. So, but now with the help of Carlos, my co-organizer, and a lot of momentum, we're picking up speed. We're now about 6 speakers deep. So every second Thursday of the month, we'll be gathering right here to meet up and talk about OpenStack. Anybody who hasn't had a chance to register, and that's the wrong button, please feel free to register for the meetup so that you get notified as I schedule new ones. And then of course, there's the Wi-Fi password if anybody doesn't currently have it. My name is Ben Rodrigue, and then this is Carlos here in the back. We'll probably just be tag teaming these events as we go along throughout the year. This event is being sponsored obviously by Geekdom for providing this fine facility for us. And then this is my company, Skills Recruiting. I'm providing kind of pizza, beer, stuff like that, just for lack of having a different sponsor. I went ahead and stepped up and did that. Thank you. Well, I get to talk about my company a little bit for it though, so I'm not going to take this whole 15 minutes. I'm literally just going to walk through. I want to talk a little bit about jobs that are available within OpenStack and what's required, and then how to possibly find the information to get said jobs. So that's what I'm going to do. And then Melvin, actually, he drove here all the way from Houston today to deliver this talk. Learn You Some OpenStack for great good. It's essentially an OpenStack 101 talk, and as long as voting goes well, he'll be delivering it at the OpenStack Summit in April. So these are our upcoming meetups next month. We're going to have a gentleman from Cumulus. I'm going to be talking about the networking layer of OpenStack, Project Neutron, and then specifically modular, this keeps cutting out, the modular layer 2 plugin. And then our very own Doug, the following month of April, will be talking about Project Barbican, which he's the PTL for the Project Technical Lead for. And then the OpenStack Summit is towards the end of April. We're very lucky. It's in Austin. It bounces back and forth. It's been all over the world. If you can go, register now. It's literally half off right now. I think full track is like $600 right now. It's $1,200 once it gets outside of the early birds. It starts getting expensive. And I think it's $350 if you just want to do keynotes and the booth crawl. And there's a lot of cool. What's that?
It's free if you're an ATC.
Yeah.
Active technical contributor. Have you heard about this?
Since I'm not. No.
Oh, okay. So really, I totally interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you contribute code to any project that is official OpenStack, then from the Git commit logs, they can get your name and email address, and they'll email you a code so that you can attend the summit for free.
Is there a deadline date when you need to have that code submitted?
Super soon, like I would do it in the next week or two. And remember, documentation is code, so if you can contribute some docs or you see that something's wrong in one of the documentation.
So any grammar Nazis can
exactly.
Get in or
so that's a good way to get a free ticket, and it's just up the road. You can drive every day if you don't want to pay for hotel and stuff. I would recommend that.
Yeah.
And when it gives you $600 off, so you want to make sure you submit your voucher before the early bird.
Well, you want to register now. Yeah. And so, who's Skills Recruiting? Skills Recruiting is my company. I'm essentially a technical recruiter, primarily working in the OpenStack space. My background is through Rackspace. I was there when OpenStack was initially conceived. I was part of the initial OpenStack builders team, and then I moved to Canonical selling Ubuntu OpenStack, and then to Morantis as well. So my background is mostly within the OpenStack ecosystem, and so what I recognize is a huge gap. There's a huge vacuum. Like there is a lot of OpenStack jobs, and not enough people to fill them. So part of what I'm tasked with, these companies like for example like Morantis and Canonical, they ping me and they say, hey, we need these people these people for jobs now. And so I go out and I recruit technical people, and then I then present them to the companies for these particular roles. And this is just what I have available to me right now. You can see it's a pretty diverse set of roles. Deployment engineer, going out and deploying OpenStack at various locations around the world. Submitting code to OpenStack. That's Morantis. They're heavy on contributing code into the OpenStack. And then an architect, basically designing systems, and then various like non-technical roles like project management, technical account manager, things like that. So a lot of times people ask me, well, you know, I want to get involved in OpenStack. I want to find a job with OpenStack. And so I just thought I would present just a basic qualification request by an employer, for example, for a deployment engineer. And this is a tough job. I mean, this is somebody that knows the full stack, is capable of building out a network, as well as deploying the infrastructure, the code, understands hardware, and understands every layer. So then the next question is obviously, well, okay, so how do I get qualified to do a job like that? Well, obviously, a job like that, it takes a lot of time, but maybe an entry-level job, it's developing a strong understanding of OpenStack, and it's building a lab, deploying that environment, knowing Linux really well, and then in a lot of these interviews, like, I don't know if anybody's heard of TrueAbility, they're I believe a Geekdom startup like Squeezo and a few folks. A lot of them are using software like that to test somebody's capabilities in terms of just understanding, you know, Linux, working in a command line, configuring a machine, understanding how Puppet and Chef work, right? And so those are kind of baseline requirements. So anybody that's a developer, I mean, honestly, if I need something for OpenStack, I go to openstack.org. The documentation is spectacular. There's a lot of information there. There's a wiki, it's how to contribute, and it basically walks you through step by step on how to contribute your first code into the OpenStack project and get yourself a free ticket into the OpenStack Summit. And then in terms of training, so if you go to software/start, it basically walks you through the basic documentation of OpenStack. There's tutorials. There are various options for how to deploy it, whether you want to deploy it using Ubuntu OpenStack or you want to try out DevStack. There's a lot of different options on how to get going deploying OpenStack. And then of course there's a huge marketplace of folks that are providing paid training. Two that I would recommend are Rackspace and Morantis. And I did work for them, but at the same time, they offer a relatively unbiased training. I've seen both of their training materials where they're not just teaching you like here's Rackspace's distro or Rackspace's way of doing it, or Morantis training isn't like here's how you do it with Fuel, right? It's a relatively unbiased way of deploying OpenStack, and so that's why I like those two courses. But of course, there's a lot. If you go to this marketplace, really it'll come down to who's offering the one that's closest for the right price. That's usually what it ends up coming down to. So. With that said, my contact details, and I appreciate your guys' time. And on to our main speaker.
I don't think I'll be able to.
No?
I think I'll be able to project loud enough.
I just worry about the video picking it up since there's no mic.
I can use it. Yeah, I can use it. Yeah, we can do that. I was okay. Let's see if this works really good here. All right, so appreciate you guys coming out, and you girls as well, you ladies. So my name is Melvin Hillsman, as you can see right there, an OpenStack engineer with Rackspace. And so I'm really involved in the community, started the official user group in Houston. We're looking to actually do an OpenStack Day Texas in July, so you guys should hear some information about that. It's been vetted by the foundation, it's been okayed and all that good stuff. They'll have all the information as well for it. So how many people in here are actively working on OpenStack right now? Okay, great. I just want to get a little bit of a feel for the crowd, because I don't want to be too shallow, and then I don't want to be too deep, which I'm not really deep, so but I want to kind of stay middle ground. So cool. So about half of y'all are pretty familiar with it, right? Who's installed OpenStack, at least a test environment? Okay, so some people who are not working on it have installed it. So the biggest thing about OpenStack, right, is you install it, it works fine, as long as it's working fine. But then when it breaks, it's really broken, right? So hopefully, you guys, Ben can help you guys get from the place of just installing it and everything's okay as it's working, to when it breaks, you have a good idea of why it's broken and how to fix it. Okay. All right. So Mr. Hillsman is pretty much me everywhere. So MrHillsman.com is a website. At Mr. Hillsman is a Twitter handle. Mr. Hillsman is the LinkedIn. Mr. Hillsman is the Facebook. So pretty much everywhere. All right. So please keep in touch with me. If you know some folks in Houston, we would love to have them come out as well to the Houston meetups. Let them know. So let's talk about cloud and virtualization concepts, right? This is basically what you should already know. So I call this non-volatile memory lane, right? Stuff you should have available in your mind by default. So back in the day, pre-virtualization, you've got one server per application, right? And unracked tower servers. So basically, you got these desktop machines, on bookshelves. That's basically what you have, right? And that's your data center. Very noisy, uses up a lot of electricity. Stuff breaks all the time. It's hot. Just a bunch of issues, right? But the main problem was that if you needed a new application, or if you needed to expand your application, your existing application, right? Then what you would have to do is you'd have to put in a PO, purchase order, or some type of request to get this new box, and then you've got to wait for the box to get there, and then these folks over here got to cable it, these folks got to install stuff. So just a big delay from the time that you need the equipment to the time that you have it available to you. And then we have virtualization. So also, I should have said this up front. If you guys feel the need to stop me if I'm being too shallow, again, if I'm being too deep, don't think that you just have to sit and listen to me. I hate those type of interactions. So feel free to stop me and be like, hey man, I don't know what you're talking about, or you're wrong. This is what's actually right. Okay. So we went from pre-virtualization to virtualization, right? So it's basically the logical division of resources. So as you can see, the data center is a lot cleaner looking. The boxes are smaller. You got blade servers, rack servers that are not taking up as much space. Virtualization, there's two types, type 1 and type 2. So type 1 is your native bare metal, right? So it actually interacts with at the very fabric of the machine per se, okay? And then type 2 is hosted, which is basically like, it's inside of an operating system, so it's not directly acting with the underlying hardware. So you've got different types, hardware virtualization, desktop virtualization, and then you've got nested virtualization, which is, machines in machines per se, right? So then, so the next iteration, of our squeezing everything down, is this cloud thing. So funny story, I had to rent a car, right, to come out here. And so the enterprise came and picked me up. And, and so I was sitting in the car with the lady. She's like, what kind of work do you do, so forth and so on. Like, well, I work in the cloud. And so she's like, well, I don't know what is it? What is the cloud, right? So it's this mysterious thing, but all in all, it's just the internet. That's the way I look at it. Like the cloud is just the internet, right? So it's basically. Is that died or was that? I think it's dead.
Is it dead?
Yeah, I think it died. Sir. All right, cool. Test, all right. Okay, so, yeah, so what makes that a cloud, right? So essentially the cloud, there's really three main aspects of it. It has to be on demand, it has to be elastic, and it has to allow for self-service. It has to cut out that large delay between the request for some resources and actually getting it. So on demand, it's having to call HP or Dell or wherever you can go in and say, hey, I need a new machine, and decide what resource you want, and here it comes. All right, it's elastic, so you can resize it. If you start off with 8 gigs of RAM and then you figure out, hey, 8 gigs is too much, I'm spending too much, I don't need that much, you can shrink it. So you can grow it, you can shrink it as needed, right? And then self-service. There's no physical deployment, again, cutting out that delay with the data center per se, or the need to fulfillment process. And then consumer direct requests. Again, you log into this portal somewhere and you actually can get all of the stuff that you need on demand without any, again, third parties. All right, so let's talk about the traditional computing stack. All right, so traditionally, everything was managed end-to-end by an IT department. There's no end-user manipulation. All right, so you have everything. I mean, from the networking fabric at the data center to storage to servers, the hypervisor, the virtualization aspect, the operating system, middleware, which is like your JBoss, those kind of things. Runtimes, which is like your PHP, your, I don't know, PHP is a good example, let's stop there. All right, and then your data and application, all right? So traditionally, everything, the IT department took care of everything, and the folks over in different departments just used it, they consumed it, but they didn't have any real control. All right, so then comes along infrastructure as a service. So remember, we're still talking about the cloud, and basically infrastructure as a service, it abstracts from it gives you from that traditional cloud, traditional computing stack, it abstracts the underlying infrastructure, the networking, the storage, the server, the hypervisor, right? So you can install whatever operating system you want, but the rest of the stuff is taken care of for you. And this is essentially where OpenStack, makes its mark known. Okay. So the next part of the cloud is platform as a service. So again, it's this abstraction where you go all the way up to the runtime. So your service provider takes care of everything all the way up to the runtime. So for example, you may have, I think OpenShift is a good example, from Red Hat's a good example of a platform as a service where you say, hey, I need a PHP 5.5 box with, I need a full limp stack or whatnot. So you go and you just, hey, give me this. You got everything. You don't have to worry about what versions, if Nginx version, whatever, is compatible with PHP, if, PHP, FPM and all that kind of stuff. They take care of everything. And all you have to do in platform as a service is provide the data and create the application. All right, and then now we're in this great area of anything as a service. You've got firewall as a service, load balance as a service, desktop as a service, everything, anything as a service, right? So there's providers out there that that give you this. So again, this is talking about what makes it a cloud. So there's three different types of clouds, right? Public, private, and hybrid. All right, so public cloud. It's convenience with plenty of provider options. So this is like your AWSs, right? AWS has a slew of different options for you. Microsoft has some public cloud. There's Rackspace has public cloud. Everybody's got public cloud pretty much. Well, some folks are shut down like HP and Verizon recently. But you know, there's so many options out there, right? That's the public side of it. It's a pay-as-you-go model, so you pay for what you need. Like at Rackspace is, you know, it's hourly, so you pay per hour, and per resource per hour. It can be unreliable because again, this is essentially just, you know, if you just be honest about it, it's essentially just shared hosting. You know, at the end of the day, but it's cloudy. And it's also less secure again because of the aspect of you're not the only one on this machine. Then you've got private. So the concepts of private, they align with those of public cloud in terms of, you know, just the cloud aspect of it. It requires some IT expertise because you have to, you know, you're building it. You have full control over everything about that cloud, right? And it provides you more control and reliability. So you can, you know, you're the only one consuming it. You don't have to worry about, you know, Joe Blow over here spinning up, you know, 1,000 servers and then trying to kill 1,000 servers in an hour. And it's, you know, everything is going to hell at the data center or at your public provider. And then there's private. Then there's hybrid. So it's you know, it's a mix between the two. And I really think that hybrid is it's the best of both worlds. It's cost effective. It's gaining a lot of popularity. You can pretty much understand why, right? If you're a developer, you know, if you're a software company, you don't want to damage your private cloud or your stuff that's working properly, right? You want to be able to spin up some resources, not spend a bunch of money doing it, and then also, you know, test out all of your different changes and so forth and so on you want to do. And then, you know, if you need to, you can pull that into your private cloud. So hybrid is gaining a lot of popularity, and it definitely is going to be something I think to behold in the near future. So here's the idea of all three of those laid out. So you've got your private cloud. You know, so this is either your data center or a third-party data center, or even your house if you want it to be. All right. So you have total control over that. And then you've got the public cloud. You know, this is your Rackspaces, your AWSs. And then hybrid cloud, as you can see, is basically there's resources in the private cloud, there's resources in the public cloud that are shared between, that are connected via secure VPN connection. All right, so you can pull, and the great thing about this, I had a nice little animation that unfortunately didn't work out the way I wanted to, where basically you can pull resources from public cloud to private and vice versa. Right? So that's the great benefit of hybrid cloud as well. So there's this thing in OpenStack called Big 10, right? That's the primary projects. So as we'll see, there's a lot of projects, but there's primary ones. So OpenStack is infrastructure you'll like. You know, it's infrastructure as you like it, as you want it. So here's the core services. So you got Sender, Glance, Keystone, Neutron Nova, and Swift. So Sender is your, well, I'll start with Keystone first. Let me go to the next slide because it's a little more detailed. So Keystone is a core component, should be installed first. You gotta have it, right? Can't operate without it. It's identity management. It provides catalog of services and endpoints, and it can also connect to external directory services like LDAP, for example. All right, so you can have users that are, if you're using an Active Directory as well. So if you're using those directory services already at your company, you don't have to try to recreate all the users. You can just connect Keystone to that. All right, so Keystone provides an authentication and authorization service for other OpenStack services. Provides a catalog of endpoints for all OpenStack services. So as you can see, the adoption of Keystone, again, it's a primary service here. So the adoption is very high, maturity 5 out of 5, and it's 4 years old. All right, so you can pretty much bank on Keystone working the way it's supposed to, as well as all the other core services we'll look at here. So Nova is the compute aspect of it. It does instance management. There's this thing called sales regions, aggregates, etc., which is basically being able to divide up resources and place things in certain areas. Provides drivers for interaction, so like you have libvirt, there it works with Zen, libvirt, a number of hypervisors, so you know Nova basically it allows you to use whichever hypervisor you deem fit. And also defines some networking, and that's Nova Network is still around, but a lot of people, you know, go for Neutron, which is the networking aspect of OpenStack, but you can still use Nova Network. You know, it's still a functional piece, as far as I know. And if I'm wrong, y'all tell me, like, don't have me up here like lying.
What part of the network stack does it do?
It can do everything. Neutron is just much more capable.
And so again, 96% adoption, 5 out of 5 maturity, 6 years old. It's one of the first, one of the first, because you got Nova and Switch. So, all right, next one here. I've got a little delay, so that's why I kind of look up there, because it's a little bad right now, but we'll work through it. So Neutron, that's the networking, right? So network management, virtual network devices, manages SDN infrastructure, which is software-defined networking, all right? And can leverage physical devices, which is a great thing. I'm not sure if Nova can leverage physical devices. That may be one of the issues with it. But again, Neutron just gives you this, a greater opportunity to work with networking, right? Again,
So it kind of sounds like the difference between the original vSwitch within VMware and distributed virtual switch and NSX now. Is that kind of the difference between?
I'm not a VMware person, so I can't help you.
Just curious.
yeah, but so essentially, you know, to kind of answer your question, not so detailed, but in a general aspect, and maybe it'll help, you know, the Neutron basically, it gives you this pluggable architecture, right? So you can, it gives you the core stuff that you would need, right? And then it allows you to plug in other aspects of it as you see fit from different providers, so that way you're not stuck into doing it one specific type of way. Yeah, so again, 4 years old, 5 out of 5 maturity, 89% adoption. Neutron is very interesting. So if you're a networking person, I think it's a good exercise to, you know, go out there and read the docs and learn as much as you can about it, because there's so much you can do with Neutron, and a lot of folks are really taking advantage of that, like your Cisco's, your Plum Grids, Cumulus Networks, right? So the next core component is Glance. So Glance gives you image management. It caches images to the compute node. So essentially what happens is that whenever you spin up an instance, it has to utilize an image, which is basically, like an operating system per se, right? And so you don't want to continuously download this 300 meg plus operating system every time you need to spin up an instance. So it caches the image to the specific compute node that the instance is created on. Supports multiple OSs, so you know folks can utilize Windows, different distros of Linux, so forth and so on. You can use objects. It can use object storage as a backend as opposed to caching the images on the compute node. So that's, you know, working with OpenStack. That's an issue we will see where a customer has created so many different backups and they have so many different images, you know, that they fill up the disk space on the compute node, and there's no room for the instances to live and to work properly. So using object storage, which is called Swift, is a good option. And there's others, NetApp or NFS, or whatever the case may be, that you can use as well as a Glance backend. So again, 6 years old, 4 out of 5 in terms of maturity, 94% adoption. Again, this is core services, so all of them are going to have, you know, high numbers. Cinder is your block storage management persistent storage. So if just think of it like a USB drive. That's the way I think of it. You You know, if you need some extra storage that you can, you know, move around, attach, detach, so forth and so on. So that's what Cinder allows you to do. Snapshots can be used to boot, and then extensive collection of storage engines. So, I mean, you've got Extreme IO, I think SolidFire is one, there's a ton of them. And there has been, I think last year there was some talk about reducing those because it's just so many. But yeah, again, 4 years, 5 out of 5 maturity, 86% adoption. Okay, very stable. And then Swift, this is the other of the first two. This is object storage, simple content-only storage utilizing proxy server, which is really cool because it allows you to not have to directly communicate with each individual. So you can build like a cluster per se, right? You have a cluster and then you interact with the proxy server. And then that way you can expand this thing to as big as you want. Like Rackspace has Cloud Files, which is basically Swift under the hood, and it's it's huge. And again, multiple storage engines backing for it. All right, so here's some of the optional services: Telemetry, Heat, Horizon. I have those bigger than the others because generally folks install, especially Horizon and Heat. Horizon is the dashboard, allows you to interact with OpenStack, spin up instances, create key pairs, and so forth and so on. There is it uses the API under the hood, so essentially it's just a glorified, good-looking API. It's just a GUI. And Heat is your orchestration, which allows you to basically, for those who are not familiar with orchestration, basically you can say, hey, I want to spin up X number of instances in this type of way. You create these Heat templates, kick them off, and it builds you this environment the way you need it. And then Telemetry is really designed for, I think some folks may be trying to go into the monitoring aspect of it, but generally the idea, I believe at inception, or for the most part, was billing. I want to know how much people are using, and then I can build them accordingly. Barbican, Trove, Manila, Ironic, Sahara, these are all still, and last time I checked, these were considered a fundamental part of Liberty. And there's still, I think there's maybe like another 10, but I believe all of these are under Big 10, and I think they're all pretty much considered, mature enough projects to try to work with, especially against Telemetry, Heat, and Horizon. Okay, I lost connectivity, I'm not sure why.
When I talk about what Liberty is, you mentioned
Oh, here we
Liberty.
go. Yeah, so it just, yeah, okay.
You mentioned Liberty, you want to talk about what Liberty is?
Yeah, so Liberty is the most recent release of OpenStack. So the OpenStack release cycle is every 6 months. So there's 2 summits. Sorry about that, guys. There's 2 summits every single year. There's one locally or domestic, and then there's one internationally. The domestic one is in the first half of the year, the international one in the second half. Liberty was released in October 2015, if I'm not mistaken. The next one at the Austin Summit will be Mataka. So, but the thing about it is that a lot of folks still generally are using either Juno or Kilo, just for the simple fact that, so it's really, the project is really stabilized in my eyes. So from 2010 to 2014, there's been a whole lot of changes, right? There's just a ton of changes all over the place. But last year, and they kind of made some decisions. I can't remember the exact term they used. Well, technical debt. So that's